Torchwood time. Does anyone have anything to say about From Out of the Rain?
Oh boy.
It's a good concept. I like the concept of Jack once being part of this.
Is that the concept? I feel like this has like 5 different concepts fighting.
I like a few of the ideas here. I like the concept of Jack being part of the circus crew. I like the concepts of these people living in sort of a vegetative state. I don't think the episode does enough with these concepts, though. I just find the plot a bit average, kind of not that interesting, and a bit mediocre. I don't really have much to say about this one. I didn't remember much about it before I watched this one. It's probably my least remembered Torchwood episode. I couldn't remember a single thing about this one before I watched it again. It's one of these Torchwood episodes that has good ideas, but it just kind of feels like a B-movie plot. I just found it kind of average. I just didn't really remember much about it. It's kind of like a bit jumbled. The villains aren't very interesting, and it is what it is, you know.
You never hear anyone talk about this episode. This episode doesn't seem to be very memorable. A lot of people. The reason for that is twofold. One, despite the fact that Jack has a history sort of tangentially related to the villains in this episode, him having been part of a freak show circus act is interesting because he can never die, utilize that, and freak show, that's interesting. You don't need that though. Him sort of knowing the night travelers by proxy of having been part of another circus, he doesn't say anything about them that you couldn't have easily had the characters find out through research or anything.
Weirdly, this episode was written by Peter J. Hammond, who I think he also wrote Small Worlds in Series 1, right?
If he did, that explains a lot, because this episode has a lot of similar problems.
Because in that episode, they also did the thing with Jack also previously knowing the villains. I think it worked well in that episode. I don't think it really led to much in this episode, you know what I mean?
In both episodes, it's kind of a problem. It's more of a problem here that Jack has had past experience with these bad guys, but it's not really an episode about Jack at all. That's the first big problem with this episode. It's the first real episode we've had of Series 2 that's not any one character's emotional journey. Throughout Series 2, we've had our episodes that hinge on Owen, our episodes that hinge on Tosh and Ianto and Gwen and Jack. This isn't really anyone's episode. I couldn't tell you whose arc this episode is supposed to be, who's supposed to have undergone any real emotional experience here. So there's nothing to grab onto on that front. Secondly, just conceptually, there's too much going on and it doesn't coalesce into anything. We've got creepy circus people who travel back from the past, who are stuck on film, who have been immortalized literally on film, and they can travel in and out of film strips. But also they're water vampires, make people catatonic by sucking the moisture out of them. What's the central conceit of the story that I'm supposed to grab onto here? None of it makes any sense. And not that it doesn't make sense, it doesn't come together into anything.
There's just too much going on, and it's just one of these episodes that's made to fill 45 minutes on a whatever date this was broadcast. I don't remember. I don't know if it's Saturday or whatever, but whatever night it was broadcast. But it just seems one of these episodes that seems to fill 45 minutes and doesn't really accomplish much. It's definitely, along with last week, the previous week is the worst episode of Series 2 for me. So you've chosen the worst 2 episodes of Torchwood joining this discussion.
I mean, if anything else, this episode makes me appreciate the last one a lot. I'm not going to call Something Borrowed a great episode or anything, but that had things going on for the characters emotionally. Everyone got to do things. It had a very straightforward, interesting alien concept that was easy to grasp, followed through and was related thematically to the events of the characters' lives. This has none of that. It's they took a bunch of one-sentence concepts and threw them into a blender. What if Jack was part of an old traveling circus? What if there's a creepy circus people running around? What if moisture vampires? What if people who can come out of film strips? Ianto is really into film, I guess, and Jack is film may have immortalized them one way, but it destroyed the traveling circus, killed them.
God, interesting.
That is an interesting idea. If this episode was about that, this episode isn't about live traveling performance versus performance captured on film. First of all, that seems like a weird thing for Torchwood of all shows to talk about. Consistently, from the very beginning, this has been a very sort of specific feeling show in that it's procedural, it's about a lot of like daily life adult issues. This is not the show that I would use as the conduit to talk about visual medium, like film having maybe destroyed previous forms of expression and forms of like income for people by the fact that on one hand your feats are immortalized on film forever, but on the other hand they're immortalized on film forever, so no one needs to go and watch you do them anymore. That's an interesting concept for an episode in a different show.
The film The Artist?
Yeah.
Like, kind of the concept for that film.
Kind of. Where it's like, the concept for that film is, what if you don't have a voice for talking pictures and you can't keep up with the times? That's sort of a similar thing. You can't keep up with the times. Your skill set is made for a period in time that does not have people photographing everything and making it so that people can put it on a screen and watch it whenever they want. They don't have to pay you again. That's such a non-Torchwood story concept. And it's not even really the central concept of the episode, because we get hung up on, oh, they take the moisture out of people. Why are they water vampires?
The episode, did they tell you what they are? They're water vampires, or they're like aliens, or
I forget the name that they give them, but they're probably aliens, right? The thing that makes this super confusing is, what is it about them that makes it that they're able to be immortalized on film like that? In screenwriting terms, it's a hat. And you can't have hats on hats on hats, or else it gets too cluttered. The Vashta-Narada's hat is that they're shadows that will eat you. That is a very simple, high concept to get across. And that's something that Stephen Moffat has always been really good at, is high concepts. Things that are original ideas that you can pitch to people simply in a sentence. What if shadows could eat people? There, done.
Imagine if, like, Stephen Moffat walked into a room and just said, "What if shadows can eat people?"
Someone would probably go, that's kind of ridiculous, but if it were true, it would be really scary. Make an episode about that, and then he makes the episode about that. This is like, hat number one is, what if they take people's moisture and they're still like in this in-between life and death space, or if we get their moisture back to them, it's almost like delivering their soul back to them. That's hat one. Hat two is, what if they are like weird circus people who have sort of a tangential connection to one of our main characters, and that's Jack. Hat number three, what if they're stuck on film and like they can literally come out of a movie screen and attack people? That's too many hats for one bad guy in one episode. And it all gets jumbled, and so none of it ends up meaning anything.
yeah. And what's really bad about this episode, I watched it like right before we talked about it, and I'm already forgetting almost all of it.
I have no notes. The only notes I have are just me making like notes of like time codes and being like, so far it's been a little hard to keep invested. I feel like there's too many ideas coexisting at once. God, this is lame. That's it. Those are my notes.
Yeah, I love it. It's like there's a what's they call that in Doctor Who, a prescription filter on the whole episode. It's like they put it on the episode so nobody can actually concentrate on it, and so it's like I'm trying to, but I can't. I want to look over here. There's a squirrel. What the?
It would be easier to concentrate on this episode if it had the John Cena theme playing under it the whole time.
And his name is John Cena!
Oh, hey, Jack, is that you in that photo? The do-do-do-do. Oh, and you're immortal? I can't even take any water. The do-do-do-do.
The episode would have been improved if John Cena made a cameo in, like, the silent movie. Or,
You know
like,
that he would do it.
Holy
John Cena will cameo in anything.
Yes, he will. Yeah, what was that annoying Fred or something?
He played Fred's dad in Fred the movie. Torchwood, you could get John Cena for that. We've devolved into talking about John Cena because there's nothing to talk about in this episode.
Oh my God.
Well, I am probably the only wrestling fan on this podcast, so we can do an entire review of John Cena's career if you want. But I think we're supposed to talk about the Torchwood episode.
We can do our unscripted version of Wrestling Isn't Wrestling. That's just like chronicling the decades of John Cena's career.
And I don't want to talk about Max Landis, so we can probably move on to something else.
Max Landis could probably write something better than this episode. I'll give him that much.
Oh, well, yeah, Chronicle is a good movie, so I'll give him that. But then again, someone else directed it.
Yeah. Lucy wanted to see if we could break our record. I'm done. I've said all I have to say about this
There
episode.
is one funny bit of Flash. She's like, "We saved one. We got one, Jack. We got one."
This is the ultimate testament. This episode is not memorable because that's not what happens. He's like distraught. Oh my god, I screwed up. I only managed to get one. This is horrible. And Jack is like,
I thought he was
Hey.
happy at first. I remember looking at him. I thought he was happy, and I turned away and looked at my phone.
no, he's losing it. He's like, why couldn't we get the rest of them? And Jack is like, we got one. At least we saved one person instead of 0, which I guess is a nice sentiment. But then when that boy wakes up,
I tried to recreate the ending of like Schindler's List.
and it's like,
He was like, we could have saved more.
Jack's holding that kid, and that kid has that little smile, and it's supposed to be a heartwarming moment. That dude has parents and a sister right next to him who are all dead.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I was looking at the phone the whole time. I'm sorry.
I don't blame you. This is the one instance where you don't have to apologize. No one will blame you for not paying attention to this episode.
Final thoughts. It sucks.
It's lame.
Already?
It's bad. Wow. I feel bad for this show because that is 45 minutes that they could have dedicated to anything else that they will never get back.
I like we talked more about one of the greatest episodes of Doctor Who just like 5 minutes ago, and now we talked about this.
Yeah, it's so weird. I was wondering if we were going to have like a continued sort of parallel thing because last time we had one kind of middling okay episode of Doctor Who and one kind of middling okay but less so episode of Torchwood. And now we've just gone completely opposite extremes. Masterpiece and like calling it hot garbage would be almost too much of a compliment because hot garbage is memorable.
It's just a warm fart. That's all it is.
A long fart. That's a good description. A long fart of an episode.
Considering how last week it was me that was the most negative, I think I'm actually weirdly the least negative here, and also the least positive about Forest of the Dead. How does that work?
You guys, you both were like really negative, like you felt bad watching the previous episode. This isn't even negativity necessarily. I'm just confused. I'm trying to work out how this happened.
How did the fart
I
happen?
don't know. For me, this was like, I expected going to this episode to hate it. Watching it, I felt like it was just like,
It's boring.
I wasn't bored watching it. I thought some of the ideas were interesting. The episode itself, I don't know. One of these episodes where I think like it achieves what it sets out to do on like present something, but I just wasn't really particularly engaged with it. It was it had some interesting concepts, didn't execute them brilliantly. It was not like a horrendous episode, but it wasn't a good episode either. I don't really have much to say about this apart from like it was meh. It wasn't horrible. I didn't find it even boring, actually. I thought it was interesting at points. I don't really have much to say about it. It was just kind of meh.
Fully back to forget this episode exists and have zero reason to ever think about it if I'm not listening to this video ever again.
Re-listen to this video more often.
I'll make sure to send this video to you once a year, Nick, for an anniversary of the episode that wasn't there. It doesn't exist. That's the thing. It doesn't actually exist. We just passed out and had a weird dream, and now we're just talking about it.
Yeah, imagine we post this and like whoever bothers to comment is going to be like, what is this? This isn't even an episode that exists. What are you talking about?
It seems like this is the episode of Torchwood that everyone never remembers. Like, I have seen discussions been done about every single Torchwood episode besides this one. It's weird. Like, nobody ever talks about this one. After watching it, I can kind of see why. But at the same time, it's not the worst Torchwood episode. There's a few Torchwood episodes I would put below this. But yeah, I can see why. It's just completely unmemorable. Nothing really memorable about this. either good or bad. And I think sometimes mediocre episodes, which nobody really pays attention to, can be less memorable than like really bad or really good or divisive episodes. And that's the problem with like kind of average pieces of TV. You don't remember them as much as amazing or horrible pieces of TV. Like with Doctor Who, everybody remembers Fear Her or Sleep No More, but nobody remembers Cold War, which is just kind of like, it exists, but nobody remembers it.
Cold War is more memorable than this, to me, I think. If for no other reason than at that point in the show, it looks way better than this does.
It's only memorable because the Ice Warriors appear in it. If the Ice Warriors did not appear in it, and that guy from Game of Thrones didn't appear in it, which I've never watched, so I can't even comment on, nobody would even remember that.
I'm going to get a little dig in, and Nick's going to try to kill me for saying this. Most of Series 11.
Neither of you will ever be able to forget most of Series 11 because no one will ever shut up about it.
No, never. Not even us. So you're right about that.
With Series 11, it's like with the exception of like one or two episodes or individual scenes, I just find the majority of it pretty dull. I really need to rewatch it, but I don't want to. It's like the thing with Series 11 is it's the same with like what I've just said. The majority of the episodes in that series I just find to be not bad, but painfully average. I just don't remember anything about that series much, and I think I'm going to rewatch it soon, and I might even change my opinion on it and think it's a great series. Who knows?
I don't expect that to happen, but I've had my perceptions of certain episodes go that route, so who knows, honestly.
I remember like Kablam being good, but at the same time, the ethics in that episode are questionable, so I don't know if I'll end up disliking it by the
until the climax, so the bulk of that episode is just a really interesting mystery.
I remember thinking at the time, the episode seems to be more against like radical terrorism as an excuse for problems than actually apologizing for corporations.
Right, that becomes a problem in the climax.
But maybe if I rewatch the episode, I'll change my opinion and end up despising it. But I remember enjoying that one. Weirdly, I remember enjoying Arachnids in the UK as well, which everyone also seems to hate.
Say this, and I've said this since I saw that episode like the second time. You just have to accept that Arachnids in the UK is like this weird B movie. It's like one of the real cheesy Pertwee stories.
I kind of like that. I like when Doctor Who tries to be fun at times rather than overly serious, and I do think the ethics are a bit questionable.
The ethics in Arachnids are even more questionable than in Kerblam, I think. If you go into an episode not even just not wanting anything serious, like not wanting any character depth aside from Graham's like grief and stuff, just a bunch of characters fighting a bunch of big monsters, and it's spooky, and it's like the big thing that episode has going for it is the atmosphere. For an episode about giant spiders, that is a sufficiently creepy and spooky episode, and that's really all you need, I guess, to enjoy it.
Someone with arachnophobia myself,
I
don't
like the spiders, and you want to see them suffocating that stuff.
It's unfortunate for Series 11 that I treat Resolution as the real finale of that series, and I really like Resolution. The actual finale, Battle of Ransworth Colossus, is the most boring and unmemorable one.
Resolution, weirdly, is probably my favorite episode of the Chibnall era so far, next to Haunting of Villa Diodati. I thought it was like really great. It had some really good character drama, really good Dalek stuff. I remember thinking watching it was better than all of Series 11. And I was thinking, yeah, why don't we get more of this?
And then there's Saranga Conundrum, which you guys know I enjoy a lot. But even then, I enjoy it a lot on, like, the same level as something like The Unicorn and the Wasp. Like, that is a clearly standalone, like, not too serious, not too deep. It's just a solid beginning, middle, end, standalone adventure just to put on if you want to watch a little throwaway thing. Everyone except me seems hell-bent on treating that episode like it is the worst thing ever created, and I just don't understand.
The worst thing ever created, it's just the fact that 5 episodes into the new showrunner's run, the new showrunner gives us just this most boring, generic episode, which
I don't think it's that boring.
Well, yeah, it depends on your opinion of it. I remember watching that episode and thinking, yeah, this is the best you can do after 5 episodes in the new era. And I was just drifting off. When I rewatch it, I might be less harsh on it, or I might be more harsh on it. I think when I rewatch Series 11, my opinions could change. Take it with a grain of salt at the minute. So
I'll tell you, the second episode, The Ghost Monument, I enjoyed way more on a second watch than I did on the first watch. I was really, really dismissive of that episode the first time I saw it. The second time when I did it for the series overview, I was like, you know what? The ending is super rushed, and like the way things resolve and floating rags are really stupid. But that aside, there's actually a lot to enjoy in this episode.
Well, the main thing I remember at the Ghost Monument is the supporting characters were good. But the episode itself is just kind of like, there's just nothing to it. And it ends with the main villain, I think he was a villain, saying, yeah, it's over. The race is over. See ya. And then just get back to the TARDIS.
The resolution really suffered from being super rushed, but I felt like there was a lot of great, like, continuing to establish Ryan and Graham and Yaz's characters. I thought they all got their own little neat moments of, like, this is furthering, like...
What did Yaz do in that episode? I don't remember anything she did in that one.
Same. I don't
it's not
remember
that they
anything.
did anything. I mean, like, dialogue stuff, mostly.
Yaz after the recent series, but with Series 11, I think she just does nothing in any episode. It's weird. I can't remember a less developed companion in history than, like, Series 11 Yaz.
Well, there's Dodo.
Oh, well, yeah. Yeah, Dodo.
Talked more about Series 11. We talked about this Torchwood episode. You know what? Don't even cut this. Don't even cut this at all. Just make this
entire discussion on From Out of the Rain, which is just meh.
From Out of the Rain, parentheses, but really it's Doctor Who Series 11.
Peter J. Hammond, write a terrible episode, not just an average one, so we can actually talk about it more.
Yeah.
Write it terrible in a way that's not boring.
For Rob's thoughts on Series 11. Yeah.
I'll have to rewatch it. I mean, because these are not my official thoughts on the series.
We'll just keep it in for now. We'll put the title, This Boring Episode in Season 11.
This episode and discussion about other things.
Yes.
We have officially almost been talking for 2 hours, and I'm going to give my voice a rest. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you for Midnight and Adrift next time. And I'm out of here. I can't.
Bye.
The 180 that we did, going from such a great pair of episodes to this, and like my mood has completely.
We'll just leave it at that. See you.
Oh, God.